Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. The murder of Dr. George Tiller. That is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. Anarchy and vigilantism will assure the collapse of any society. Once the rule of law breaks down, a country is finished. Thus, clear-thinking Americans should condemn the murder of late-term abortionist Tiller. Even though the man terminated thousands of pregnancies, what he did is within Kansas law. The accused killer, 51-year-old Scott Roeder, may have had ties to the Freeman Organization, a far-right group which rejects government authority. Roeder is likely to be charged with first-degree murder. He has a previous weapons charge conviction. The 67-year-old Tiller had performed abortions for more than 35 years. The Washington Times estimates he destroyed about 60,000 fetuses. 60,000. According to the AP, Tiller performed more than 250 late-term abortions in 2003 alone. His income was estimated to be more than $1 million a year. Right now, 36 states restrict late-term abortions, and there are only 3 clinics that perform them in the entire country. Medical consensus is that late-term abortions are rarely necessary because technology can now pinpoint major pregnancy problems much earlier than 21 weeks. Thus, very few American doctors will perform the operation. None of that seemed to matter to Tiller, nicknamed the baby killer by pro-life groups, who stated he was helping women. Tiller stated that. Now, when I heard about Tiller's murder, I knew pro-abortion zealots and Fox News haters would attempt to blame us for the crime, and that is exactly what has happened. Writing in the New York Daily News, reporter Helen Kennedy was very, very sympathetic to Tiller and called my reporting on him rants. Now, Kennedy has lied about us before, so her spin comes as no surprise. Ariana Huffington immediately let her fanatics loose. Mary Mapes, Dan Rather's former producer, who was fired from CBS over false story on President Bush, wrote on the Huffington Post, quote, "I felt just sick when I saw the bulletin about the murder of Dr. George Tiller. I can already envision the backpedaling and rationalizing that we'll hear from longtime Tiller critic Bill O'Reilly." No backpedaling here, madam. Unlike you, I report honesty. Every single thing we said about Tiller was true, and my analysis was based on those facts. The far-left lunacy continued with Daily Kos editor Marcos Miletis, quote, "Who'll be the next target of O'Reilly's and Beck's ire to get gunned down by a domestic conservative terrorist?" As the Catholic League pointed out today, the hateful Kos is bashing me right above an ad for an upcoming interview with Bill Ayers. Perfect. Finally, far-left Kansas City Star columnist Mike Hendricks wrote, quote, "The murder accomplices include everyone who has ever called Tiller's late-term abortion clinic a murder mill, whoever called Tiller the killer." Now, it is clear that the far left is exploiting the death of the doctor. Those vicious individuals want to stifle any criticism of people like Tiller. That and hating Fox News is the real agenda here. Finally, if these people were so compassionate, so very compassionate, so concerned for the rights and welfare of others, maybe they might have written something, one thing, about the 60,000 fetuses who will never become American citizens. Or am I wrong? That is a memo. Now for the top story tonight, reaction to the Tiller murder. Joining us from Kansas City, Chris Kobach, a law professor at the University of Missouri who's running for Secretary of State in Kansas, and Dr. Brian Russell, a psychologist and lawyer who teaches at the University of Kansas. Now, Dr. Russell testified twice in front of the state legislature in Kansas about the abortion problems they're having there. Was Tiller involved in that testimony, Doctor?
Yes, Tiller actually spurred the legislative effort to tighten up the restrictions on late-term abortions, and because of the unwavering support of Governor Sebelius, who, as you know, is now Secretary of Health and Human Services, the legislature here was never able to effectively do that, never able to effectively curtail Tiller's practice at all. So he found himself essentially able to perform late-term abortion on demand.
Now, he was acquitted, Tiller was, of charges brought against him, misdemeanor charges, that he violated regulations in the abortion process, and many liberal writers and liberal people use that as a justification and said, look, Tiller's a law-abiding citizen. He doesn't deserve any scorn at all. What do you say to that, Doctor?
Well, as an attorney, I have to point out that when a jury acquits somebody, it doesn't necessarily mean that they didn't really do anything wrong. It just means that that jury wasn't convinced beyond a reasonable doubt. And so I don't think that acquittal means that Tiller was operating fully within the law. I think it means that he was operating within a legal system that was not enforced really much at all, with the blessing of a very sympathetic governor.
Okay. Now, Mr. Kobach, are you sympathetic to the plight of Tiller and now his family, and he's shot down in church? And I mean, how do you feel about this?
Oh, it's just a horrible, horrible incident. I mean, to be gunned down anywhere is, of course, horrific, but in church with his wife there, his friends all around him, I mean, it's unimaginable. But, you know, there's another loss here that I think we need to talk about, and you touched on it in your talking points, and that's the loss to the rule of law. You know, the wheels of justice grind very slowly and frustratingly slowly sometimes in our system, but we have to let those wheels grind on. And I am convinced that eventually Tiller would have been successfully prosecuted. The charges you mentioned were actually sort of a peripheral charge concerning a second opinion, but the central crime that Tiller almost certainly was committing was the crime of performing illegal late-term abortions. It's against the law in Kansas to have a late-term abortion after 22 weeks.
Okay, but he wasn't convicted of that. You know, is it fair to say that
those charges were dropped? He was never actually tried on those charges.
But is it fair to say after 35 years, the guy's been doing this for 35 years, Mr. Kobach, is it fair to say that he was committing a crime or likely committing a crime when the Kansas justice system could never bring him in, could never make it stick? Is it fair to say that? Look, I'm coming at it from I just want everybody to know, you guys in the audience, I'm coming at it from a factual point of view. The man aborted 60,000 fetuses, potential human beings, all right? Human beings to some, not human beings to other, but to everyone, 60,000 potential human beings were aborted by the man who made millions of dollars doing it. To me, that's unconscionable. As an American, I have a right to say that. But the system in Kansas, Mr. Kobach, never nailed him for really anything.
It's important to recognize that the Kansas Attorney General in 2006 brought charges on both of those two crimes, and then there was a political changeover, and the new Attorney General, who had been supported with funds from Dr. Tiller, came in and dropped those central charges that I was talking about.
The people of Kansas, who really hold power in the state, Dr. Russell, didn't demand that this guy be put out of business. Look, there are only 3 doctors who do this in the United States of America. 3. Okay? I mean, come on. But the people of Kansas sat there for 35 years and allowed this mill to take place. Now, do you guys agree with me that the far left is exploiting this, trying to shut guys like me up by saying O'Reilly's responsible for this murder? You go, doctor, first.
Absolutely. And let me tell you, as an expert witness who testifies about people's motivations for committing crimes, ideologically driven killers rarely are influenced by anything other than their ideology. And Obama got this wrong a few days ago when he said that people become terrorists because they hear what's going on at Gitmo. No, they don't. They become terrorists because of ideology. And just like this guy, almost certainly and exclusively because of ideology, shot Tiller. These people who are saying that this drivel to you are as far off on their side of the issue as this shooter is on his.
And what do you say to that, Mr. Kobach? You can wrap it up for us.
I agree. It's absurd to pin blame on you. You know, what those writers of those stories, if they'd done their research, they would have learned that this shooter back in 1996 was charged for illegal use of explosives or possession of explosives. This guy had a long history of criminality.
On the air then.
And you didn't turn him into the criminal he is, and neither did the pro-life movement.
All right,
he was there already long ago.
Yeah, I don't think anybody wins on something like this, as you guys stated. It's a sad day in America.